Welcome back, grade 7 students. So last time around, we discussed about fractions. Now, we're going to discuss how to add fraction and also subtract them. Okay? So, it's actually really simple how to add. Okay? Here is an example. Okay? We have 1 over 5 plus 3 over 5. Now, the first thing you need to know when adding, okay, is whether your fraction have the same denominator or not. Okay? Now, if it has similar denominators as our example over here, which is 5 and 5, all you need to do is add the numerators, which is 1 and 3. Okay? So if we add 1 and 3, that will give us 4, of course, and all we need to do is copy 5. Okay, and we'll have an answer of 4 over 5. Okay, now if we don't have similar denominators, then it will get a bit more tricky. I'll explain how you can solve that later on. Okay, but again, we got 4 over 5. Okay, we got 4 because we added 1 and 3. Okay, and we got 5 because we just copied 5 over here because they have the same value. For subtraction, it's actually quite similar as well, right? So in the same rules that we have with addition, you have to look at the denominator first, whether they are similar or not. Again, once you know if they are similar, all you have to do is subtract 4 from 7. Okay, so if you subtract 4 from 7, you get 3, right? And what's the next thing you need to do? Just copy down the similar denominator, which is 8. Okay, simple as that. That's how easy it is to add and subtract with similar denominator fraction. Now, moving on, what if our fraction have different denominators as we have here on the screen? We have 1/2 plus 3 over 7. So, the first thing we need to do is already listed or is already here on the screen. We need to find a common denominator to add this fraction, okay? So, you cannot touch the numerators right away. You have to first find out, okay, the common denominator between the two. How do we do that? So, this method is called LCD, or least common denominator, okay? So basically, you'll find out, okay, here we have 2, right? So here, if you count by 2, you just need to go up as high as you can. And same thing for 7 up to 35, right? Now, the first digit that are similar is your LCD. So as you can see here, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then 14, right? Here in 7, we have 7 and then 14. So 14 is similar or is present in both of these numbers, which means our common denominator is 14, right? So we can change out, okay, is over here. The first number in common that appears on both lists becomes the common denominator, as I have just said. All right, so we just have to change our denominator to 14. Okay, now we need to make equivalent fraction. What does that mean, sir? Okay, so how do we get 14 if you have 2? Right? You multiply it by 7. Am I correct? So 2 times 7 is equal to 14. Now, if you use 7 over here, that means you also need to multiply your numerator by 7. So 1 times 7 is 7, correct? And similarly, you have to do it to the other fraction as well. So how do you get 14 if you have 7? So you just multiply 7 by 2. And similarly, you have to multiply 3 by 2 as well. That's how you get 6 over 14. Okay? Then once you have 7 over 14 and 6 over 14, you can just add the numerators. 7 plus 6 is equal to 13. Therefore, our final answer is 13 over 14. Okay, here's another example. This time we have 3 over 7 plus 1 over 5, right? So our first step, since they have different denominators, our first step is to find our common denominator. How do we do that again? By finding the LCD. Okay, we can use this count by the certain number method. Okay, so we have 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Okay, 42, 49, 56, and 63. We're just listing out the multiplication table for 7. Okay, then we also have 5. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and 45, right? And what's the least common number between the two? It's 35, right? So 35 will be our LCD again, or our least common denominator. Okay, so we have 35 now. Okay, so we have 35 on both of them. Now we need to multiply the same amount again. Okay, we need to make equivalent fraction, which means that in order to have or to change 7 into 35, we need to multiply it by 5, right? So similarly, you need to multiply your numerator by the same amount, which is 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. Okay. Similarly, in the fraction below, okay, how many 5s do you need to reach 35? You need 7, right? So that means you also need to multiply your numerator by the same amount, which is 7. So we get 7 over 35. Now that we have similar denominator, all you need to do again is add the numerators. Okay? So 15 plus 7 is equal to 22. That means our final answer is 22 over 35. Okay, here's another example. So here we have 4 over 7, okay, plus 3 over 8, okay. First step again is to find the common denominator, okay, which is 56, as we see over here. Okay, once we have 56, what is the next step? We need to make the equivalent fraction, which means that whatever we multiply the denominator by, we need to multiply it to the numerator as well. Okay, so to get 56, all right, you need to multiply 7 by 8. Okay, so similarly, you need to multiply your numerator by 8 as well, which will give you 32. And for the lower fraction, or for a fraction below, in order to get 56, you need to multiply 8 by 7. Okay? So that means that you need to multiply your numerator by 7 as well, which in turn will give you 21. After that, all you need to do again is to add the numerators. So 32 plus 21 gives us 53. So our final answer is 53 over 56. Right? So here's another example. We have 3 over 5, right? Okay? Plus 2 over 3. So again, similarly, we need to find the common denominator to add this fraction. Okay? So what is the least common denominator for both of these? It's not encircled anymore, but we know that it's going to be 15. Okay? So 5, 10, 15, and we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So that's the least common denominator we have for this example. Okay? So we need to make equivalent fraction again, meaning that we need to multiply the same amount that we multiply in the denominator to the numerator. And afterwards, after we get the answer, we just add the numerators again to get the final answer, 19 over 15. Okay, here's another example, but I will just scroll through this. Okay, I've given you enough examples. You can just follow it with your eyes, or you can write it down if you want to. All right. So now we are in subtraction, right? So again, if you want to go back to that, just pause the video and copy it down or write it down on your workbook if you want to. Okay? So now, how about for subtraction? As I said, it works pretty much the same. Okay? So again, we need to find the common denominator for our fraction, which is 3 over 11 minus 1 over 5. Right? So the common denominator for both of them is 55. It's pretty much the same as we did in the addition, right? So you have to make equivalent fraction, and then after making the equivalent fraction, you can then subtract, okay, your numerator to the other numerator, and then you'll get your answer, which is 4 over 55. Okay? Once again, we just need to find the least common denominator for both of the fraction, which is going to be 2 and 10. Okay? So the least common denominator, of course, will be 10. Okay? Because we have 10 and 2 will also pass by 10. That means that's going to be the least common denominator for both of them. Okay? Then just follow the steps that I've been explaining. Okay? Until you get your final answer, which is 2 over 10. Now, it's your turn to try to add, all right? So here, I'm going to give you a few seconds to write them down, or you can pause the video if you want to, okay? And answer them on your workbook, okay? I want you to try them and try to practice your adding skills using fraction. Okay, so I probably have given you enough time, or you probably have answered it already, right? So before we move on to the next slide, I want you to be sure that you have finished your fraction solving, all right? So we're going to go on now and to check whether your answers are correct or not. Okay, so for letter A, 1/3 plus 8 over 27, the answer is 17 over 27. For letter B, 1 over 4 plus 5 over 6, the answer is 13 over 12. For letter C, 7 over 10 plus 1 over 4, the answer is 19 over 20. For D, we have 1/3 plus 7 over 9. The answer is 10 over 9. For letter E, we have 5 over 7 plus 3 over 4. The answer is going to be 41 over 28. All right? For the last number, or for the last letter that we have, letter F, we have 2/3 plus 4 over 7. The answer is 26 over 21. All right? So that concludes our lesson for today, but we'll continue on part 3, all right, which we're going to be discussing how to multiply and divide fractions. So see you in part 3, grade 7.